أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعن عدوهم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters. I hope everybody is doing well with their fasting and is able to keep up. I know the circumstances are not like the normal years, but I think we can all benefit from the circumstances that we have with us today, and either learn something new or add an ibadah, a worship that we don't necessarily usually do to our schedules, or benefit in any other manner, even if it is being around your family members and those closest to you in your home. And one of the ways obviously is to be listening to the different lectures, listening to Quran. Alhamdulillah, there's some rich content out there from people who are, alhamdulillah, they're qualified for a change. That's something that I really personally stress on. Alhamdulillah, there are qualified people that are speaking on matters of religion today, and the internet is rich with these lectures and with this content, especially what's being done in these holy days. So I ask you, my brothers and sisters, don't just stick to what is being offered by your respective mosques. Also broaden your horizons just the same. So listen to what is being offered, and also if you have some time, you're just doing, you're after iftar, you're hanging out, you have your coffee, why not put something else on to benefit you and to benefit those around you? Jazakumullah khair. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So as you know, my brothers and sisters, just to give you a rundown of the schedule, I'm going to be with you bi'awnillah ta'ala for the next 12 or so days. We're going to have a lecture every single night. Hopefully by the end of those 12 days you're not going to hate me because you've been seeing me every single night. Hopefully I get to benefit from you, and also you get to benefit from me bi'awnillah ta'ala. I get to benefit from the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and any feedback that you give me, and whatever comes from me comes from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and they are beneficial bi'awnillah ta'ala. I hope whatever comes from me comes from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. If not, then I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make me from those who preach their words. So my brothers and sisters, for the next 12 days we're going to be together. I have the option of picking a new topic every single day, or having a series of lectures on one specific topic. Picking a new topic every day is okay, but if we want to drive home one idea or one general idea, it's best to have a series of lectures on that topic. On the other hand, I personally don't like to do a series of lectures on one specific topic because I feel like it's too much sometimes for the crowd, and the crowd wants something a little bit different. And usually I feel like series of lectures is for a more academic crowd, a crowd that is looking to broaden their horizons on a topic that they don't necessarily know too much about. Not necessarily is it good for a family setting where families are getting together and listening to a specific lecture. This is all, my personal take, unless obviously the series that you're discussing is not necessarily discussing one specific topic throughout the 10 days or 12 days or however long. Rather, it's speaking about different topics but around one general subject matter. And this is exactly what we are going to be doing, my brothers and sisters. What we are going to do, inshallah, for the next 12 days, other than the days of Wiladat Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam and the day after, where we're going to be dedicating 2 or 3 days for Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, we are going to be discussing Islam in the holistic manner that it came to us. As in, we are going to go on a journey together, my brothers and sisters, trying to understand the fundamentals of Islam and get a different perspective on Islam, one that is more holistic. And you're going to find in this lecture, I'm going to use the word holistic a lot. Why? Because my brothers and sisters, today, you find that a lot of discussions are being conducted and a lot of lectures are happening, and many people are drawn towards these different lectures and these different topics that are very, let's say, decorative in their titles and the decorative in their content, and very specific and detailed, and speak about very specific and detailed issues within Islam, whether they are historical, whether they are aqa'id based beliefs, whether they are fiqh, no problem. Most of these lectures usually center around the first, and that is historical. Nonetheless, a lot of people are drawn to these different topics that are not really discussed much, discussions that, oh, this is different and not what we've been listening to for the last 30 years. And so we want to listen to these, different discussions and different lectures on these very specific historical events, or very specific and detailed, what we call mahawir, or subjects within Islam. Which is not a problem whatsoever. And I'm not at all refuting such an idea and saying it's wrong. But you find that a lot of people are drawn towards these issues and drawn towards these discussions and subjects when the fundamentals of Islam for them, when the fundamentals themselves are not rooted and deeply rooted. For example, if I was to choose to do a lecture about the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil, not Muslim ibn Aqil himself, the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil in their lives, and how they lived their lives, and what happened to them, and how did they eventually die, or how were they eventually martyred, for those that were martyred of them. You might be drawn towards that lecture, not because you have a specific interest in Muslim ibn Aqil himself, not because you're studying the life of Muslim ibn Aqil, not because you're an academic looking into this issue specifically. Rather, it's a different issue. It's a different topic. It's a different discussion. One that you may not have heard about before. But if I ask you, why do you worship God? Something so simple as that. Why do you worship God? Why do I worship God? Why are you searching for the truth? Why search for the truth? These are topics, these are questions that we may not ask ourselves much, but they're the fundamentals of our religion. Why does God exist? How do you know that He exists? For what reason do you believe in God? And if He exists, He's out there. What? Why am I following a set of rules and guidelines? For what? What's the reason? These questions are fundamental questions, my brothers and sisters, that some of us, when we're asked them, we have to sit and think. Wait, what? Like, what do you mean? And we need clarification. What are you trying to ask us? Where the question itself is vague to us, although it's very straightforward, and the answer is even more vague. And we don't have the answer. When we don't have the answer, and we get stumped. When the fact of the matter is, my brothers and sisters, us living in the West is not asking us about the sons of Muslim ibn Aqil. Nor is the West asking of us, I can't even talk. I'm fasting, by the way, so if I'm making mistakes, it's your fault. Nor is the West asking us about, for example, Sab' al-Dajjal, one of the prominent figures of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, buried in Iraq, and he has a maqam. Jameel, he's a great individual. The hadith and the history is rich about such figures in Islam. But the West is not asking about these figures, not asking about these nitty-gritty details. The West is asking you, why do you worship God? The West is asking me, if God doesn't need me, then why am I worshiping Him? Why are you worshiping Him? These are the questions that the West is asking us and our children. So my brothers and sisters, to pick holistic, practical topics for us to delve into and discuss, in my, astaghfirullah, personal opinion, is more important, much more important than discussing these nitty-gritty details about Alam al-Barzakh, for example, or such topics that are good to know about, but after we know the fundamentals, after we understand the fundamentals. And that's why the hadith says, Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam says, he tells this story, an incident that happened with Rasulullah, in which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gives us gold at the very end. He gives us gold. He tells us what knowledge is and what it means to gain knowledge. Listen what happened. The riwayah says Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam once came into the masjid. he walked into the masjid and he found a group of companions, a group of people around this one man, and this man was preaching to them, talking to them. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to them, what does he know? What is he preaching to you? What is he discussing? Who is he first and foremost? They said he is a allama. He's a scholar. And he's teaching us about, they said, أعلم الناس بأنساب العرب. He's teaching us about the ancestry of the Arabs. Number one. ووقائعها وأيام الجاهلية. And the events of the Arabs in the past and the time of Jahiliyyah. So, he's teaching us about the forefathers of the Arabs. He's teaching us about the events of Jahiliyyah and the customs of the people of Jahiliyyah. And not just this. وَالْأَشْعَارِ الْعَرَبِيَّةِ. And he's teaching us of the old poetry of the Arabs. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, قال صلى الله عليه وآله ذاك علم لا يضر من جهله ولا ينفع من علمه. This is knowledge that does not hurt someone. لا يضر من جهله. It does not hurt someone if they don't know it, if they're ignorant about it. And it doesn't benefit someone who knows it. And then he says, إنما العلم ثلاثة. Knowledge is three things. آية محكمة, a verse in the Quran. أو فريضة عادلة, or an obligation that is taught to you. أو سنة قائمة, or a sunnah that you are taught and you are to apply. وما خلاهن فهو فضل. And what is other than these three is extra. Fadl. It's extra. If you know it, great. If you don't know it, it's not going to take you anywhere. Or it's not going to give you anything more. The three that were mentioned are what need to be understood and known. Holistic from one end, but practical from another end. Rather, you can put holistic and practical and put them side by side and say, what is holistic, or Islam in the holistic sense is practical in every other sense. Anytime you look at Islam in the holistic sense, you're always going to get some sort of practical aspect from it. You're always going to get a practical aspect from it. That's why Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, look what he says. He says, أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ اعْلَمُوا أَنَّ كَمَالَ الدِّينِ طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ. He says, O people, know that the completion of religion comes when you gain knowledge and seek knowledge. طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ وَالْعَمَلْ بِهِ. طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ وَالْعَمَلْ بِهِ. Gaining knowledge and applying it, practicing it. وَأَنَّ طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ أَوْجَبْ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ طَلَبِ الْمَالِ. And learning your religion is more important and more obligatory on you and mandatory on you than what? Seeking money and wealth. You find that what the Imam alayhi salam said, he said seeking knowledge and then al-amal bihi, and then acting upon it. It's as if the Imam alayhi salam is saying what's obligatory on you is to learn the knowledge that's going to be practical in your life. Because he said, talab al-ilm, learning knowledge, and then applying it. Using what you learned. And not just having it in the back of your mind so that when you're discussing with your friends, you show that you know. That's not going to take me or you anywhere. Yes? That's why the ulama, they came and said, and this is one of the first fatwa that were taught to us. And whenever I have a chance, by the way, to mention this fatwa, I do. So I mention it a lot. Reason being, it's because it's one of the most important fatwa, one of the important rules, most important rulings that you can possibly learn. What's that ruling? It is wajib on an individual, obligatory, mandatory, on a human being that is mukallaf, to learn the laws that they are going to be applying, either in their daily life, or they are going to be applying periodically. They are going to be applying often. If not every day, then once a week. If not once a week, once a month. Ones that they are going to be applying in their lives. For example, how to do wudu, how to do tahara, how to do salat. If you're a business person, the ahkam of business, the rulings pertaining to business. These are wajib for you to learn as a business person. But somebody who's not in business, it may not be wajib for them to learn them. Yes? Someone who's taking people to Hajj, for example, for a living, must know the rulings pertaining to Hajj that they themselves are going to be applying and allowing others to apply. They are facilitating Hajj for others, so they must learn the rulings of Hajj that they are going to be applying and helping others apply in the very same manner. Understanding Islam from a practical sense is extremely important. And so that's what we want to do, my brothers and sisters, in these next 12 days or so. Practical. But not just practical in itself. Whenever you have practical, you also get holistic. We want to understand Islam from the holistic sense as well. Well, what do I mean by holistic? When we say holistic, my brothers and sisters, we mean taking all of the pieces of Islam that we've gathered and put them together. So that these different pieces paint a real picture of what Islam is all about and the meaning behind Islam. Sometimes, my brothers and sisters, as we said, we just get engulfed by the details. And we miss the big picture of what Islam is calling for, what Islam is trying to convey to us. And you find a lot of people that have grown up in households that are very, very traditional, they have this problem where they don't get Islam in the holistic sense. They get Islam in pieces. And they don't try to put the pieces together. They just apply it in the way that they've been told to apply it. They are told to apply Islam in 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do this, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they've been doing it for years and years and years, and it just becomes a system that they work by. But meaning behind the system, why the system works in the way it works, what's the reason behind it, they don't even know. And you find that it's these types of families or these types of people that fall into haram most often. Although they attend the mosque, although they may pay khumus, although they may do what their wajibs are, but it's these people that contradict themselves usually with muharramat, where it's these same people, for example, that wal-'iyadh billah will drink. Although they pray 5 times a day or they go to the mosque, but they still drink. It's these people that, for example, you will find in parties. It's these people, for example, that you'll find doing 1, 2, 3, and 4. No judgment on anybody, but in the end, a sin is a sin. No problem. Put that aside. Fact of the matter is, it sprouts from this. Taking just the pieces, applying them without knowing why they're there, what they're there for, without meaning, without ma'rifah. And not having a holistic understanding of Islam. And that's why the riwayah says, look what the riwayah says. لا يقبل الله, or this could be a meaning of the riwayah. I don't want to do tafsir for the riwayah from my own opinion. Astaghfirullah. لا يقبل الله عملا إلا بمعرفة. Allah Ta'ala will not accept an action, will not accept a deed if it does not come with ma'rifah, understanding. ولا يقبل المعرفة إلا بعمل. And understanding is not going to be accepted by God unless it comes with action. In other words, the knowledge that you have has to bring about action. And the action that you do has to come from a place of understanding and knowledge. فمن عرف دلته معرفته على العمل. So, the person who knows, that knowledge, that understanding will take them towards a correct method of action. Correct way of action. And you find even in the theoretical sense, even in the theoretical understanding of Islam, understanding ahkam of Islam, the rulings of Islam, and other theoretical ideas around Islam, having a holistic view is extremely important. Having the fundamentals down is extremely important. Understanding Islam in a holistic manner is extremely, extremely important. Even when discussing the details of Islam and the rulings of Islam, which are a piece of Islam, having a holistic understanding of Islam is extremely important. Sayyid Munir al-Khabbaz, he discusses this in an article that's written on his website. For those who can read Arabic, I really suggest you read at least some of it. It's titled At-Tafaqquh fi Din. If you put on Google At-Tafaqquh fi Din, Ahlul Bayt, you find Sayyid Munir al-Khabbaz's website. He discusses this very thoroughly, and it's very beautiful the way he puts it down. He says, he says that there are two types of nadarat, outlooks towards Islam that you can have. You have a nadra at-tajzi'iyya, and then you have a nadra at-takamuliyya. There are two outlooks that an individual has towards Islam. There is I would say the holistic view, and then there is the fragmented view. The holistic outlook and then the fragmented outlook. Holistic outlook, we understand, you get a whole view. But you won't really understand what the whole view means unless you understand the fragmented view or the fragmented outlook. What's a fragmented outlook? Fragmented outlook of Islam is looking at one piece of Islam while disregarding the rest and disregarding what that piece truly means relative to everything else. He gives a beautiful example. He says this. Allah Ta'ala in the Quran, what does He say? He says, for the male takes 2 times more than the female when it comes to inheritance. When it comes to inheritance, the male is to take 2 times more than the female. Jameel. If you were to look at Islam or this ruling of Islam, if you had a fragmented outlook on Islam, you would come and say that is unequal. That is injustice. That is belittling the woman. That is taking away the haqq, the right of the woman. A fragmented look, a nadra tajzi'iyya comes in and says, or brings you to that conclusion. But a holistic outlook comes and says, no, take this hukum and then compare it with another hukum, put it side by side with another ruling that comes and says, the man of the household must provide for everyone within the household, the children and the wife. The man of the household is obligated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide for himself and for the family that he has. While the woman in the household, even if she has money, she does not have to provide 1 cent to her husband nor to her family. So it makes sense for the man to take more because he has religious obligations in terms of his wealth, in his wealth, that the woman does not have. Jameel. How did we get to this explanation? When we had a holistic understanding of Islam. We didn't look at Islam just in this specific circle, this specific aspect, and try to and understand Islam from that one point. Rather, someone who has a holistic understanding takes all of the different points, puts them together to draw a big picture. My brothers and sisters. Another such example, my brothers and sisters, another such benefit of having a holistic view is what they call Ruh al-Islam, the spirit of Islam. Understanding the overall message Islam is trying to give. When someone doesn't have a clear message of what Islam is trying to provide and what Islam is trying to bring forth, then yes, even in the nitty-gritty details, even in the ahkam, the laws of Islam, they're going to make a mistake and they're going to misunderstand them. A perfect example of this is in Shahr Ramadan, you're allowed to travel. I'm giving rulings, I'm giving practical examples, but these examples are over jurisprudence. They're in every single aspect of Islam. But for me to give you for me to define practical Islam, holistic Islam, it's best to use these practical Islam examples, so jurisprudential examples. For example, it is if you travel during Shahr Ramadan, you're able to break your fast. طيب, some people come and say, and we discussed this last week, some people come and say, well, back then at the time of the Prophet, it wasn't easily accessible to travel, and by traveling it would have taken a toll on a person's body, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it necessary for a person to break their fast if they travel. But in today's time, you pop in the car, half an hour, you're outside the city, you can break your fast. Well, that's playing with rules. A lot of people come forward with that. These people don't have a full understanding, a holistic understanding of what Islam is trying to say. Another such example, and I actually heard this from a speaker, a very prominent and known person as well. They came and they were saying that having multiple days for Eid goes against the spirit of Islam. And even if the hadiths are what we call zahir, they have a dhuhur in them, the meaning is very apparent. They have hujjiyat al-dhuhur, the meaning is very apparent and the authority is for the apparent meaning. Even if they have apparent meaning, we can't take that apparent meaning. Why? Because it goes against the spirit of Islam. طيب, who said your understanding of what the spirit of Islam is correct? For you to say that the riwayat are speaking, in a different tone, or speaking about something totally different. In other words, the spirit of Islam is not understood here. The spirit of Islam is not understood. For the last 1,000 years, cities and people used to have 3 days of Eid, not one. And it was normal. They had Eid for 3 days. They celebrated Eid for 3 days on end. And it was normal. Nobody complained. Nobody's having a problem with that. Nobody said no. Why is it now, after 1,000 years, we're discussing the spirit of Islam and we're saying it goes against the spirit of Islam? It's not that it goes against the spirit of Islam. Your understanding of the spirit of Islam, your holistic understanding of the spirit of Islam may not be correct. And so, my brothers and sisters, in this series that we're going to be embarking on, all of us, inshallah, we're going to have this journey, rather, we're going to try and go back to the fundamentals. Ask these questions that either A, we're afraid to ask, or B, we've never been asked before. We're going to discuss issues in a step-by-step fashion. Every day is going to be dedicated to a specific topic on our journey together, my brothers and sisters, and achieving a holistic understanding of Islam, going back to the basics, the fundamentals, and not just learning, as they say, the ABCs. No. Delving into the fundamentals of Islam, understanding them thoroughly from every single angle, and some of the questions and what we call shubuhat, the questions that are asked and the arguments against these fundamentals, we'll present them inshaAllah ta'ala, discuss them thoroughly bi'awnillah ta'ala. What I wanted to dedicate today to is the idea of arriving at a holistic understanding of Islam, my brothers and sisters, and get us out of the darkness of what we call fragmented outlook, or the fragmented outlook on Islam, which is extremely dangerous, especially here in the West, where our fundamentals are being targeted and not the details that we tend to gravitate towards. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم أسأله تعالى أن يعفو عنا ويغفر لنا ويرحمنا إنه نعم المولى ونعم النصير وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.